Good morning and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. My name is Bhante Suddhāso, and this morning I'll be talking a bit about one of the Buddha's discourses. This one is from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 47, sutta number 8, the Sūda Sutta, which is the simile of the cook. So I'll start by paying homage to the Buddha, and then I'll talk a bit about the discourse, and then if there's any questions, I'll take questions at the end. So please feel free to type in questions related to the discourse at any time, and I'll take them at the end. So we'll go ahead and start with homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this discourse is from the Satipatthana Samyutta, which is a series of discourses related to mindfulness practice, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Of course, the main discourse for this, there are 2. There's the Satipatthana Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, which is a bit shorter, and the Mahasatipatthana Sutta from the Digha Nikaya, which is a bit longer. Those are the main discourses for getting a detailed overview of Satipatthana practice. There's also been a number of interesting comparative studies of the different editions available of the Satipatthana Suttas across the various text traditions of Buddhism. Most notable being A History of Mindfulness by Bhante Suddhāso, which gives a quite detailed overview of 5 or 6 different versions of the Satipatthana. And of course, Bhante Analayo's classic book on Satipatthana, which focuses mainly on the standard Pali edition, but is still a quite thorough analysis of the topic of Satipatthana. This particular discourse doesn't go into much detail on the individual practices themselves, but rather is giving a very useful overall strategy for meditation practice. And in it, the Buddha uses the simile of a cook. So I'll go ahead and start reading through some of this discourse. And here I'm looking at Bhante Suddhāso's translation from Sutta Central. And as necessary, I'll also refer to the Pali text. So the text begins, Bhikkhus, suppose a foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook was to serve a ruler or their minister with an excessive variety of curries. Excessive is not the right word here. A wide variety of curries. Sour, bitter, pungent, and sweet, hot and mild, salty and bland. So this is setting up the simile. So we have a cook who is serving a wide variety of food to their master. And the translation here says that cook didn't take their master's hint. But properly speaking, what we see in Pali is nimittang na uganhati. So one does not take up the nimitta. And the word nimitta needs to be explained in a bit more detail because there's a lot of misunderstanding around this particular word. Misunderstandings mostly created by the medieval commentator Buddhaghosa, who invented some quite wild new definitions for the word nimitta, which we don't find in the suttas anywhere. So in the suttas, the term nimitta is used in mainly 2 ways. One way is to mean the characteristics of something, in which case it's almost identical to the word lakkhana. An object's nimittas are its particular details and characteristics, its features. The other main use of the word nimitta, and actually the most common use of the word nimitta, means an object of awareness or an object of attention. So whatever the mind is currently paying attention to. So then nimittang uganhati means to pay attention to what's in front of you. It means taking up whatever objects are within one's awareness. So nimittang uganhati then just more generally means paying attention to your experience, paying attention to what's going on. So in this particular case, the point here is that the cook should be paying attention to their master's behavior as they're serving them this variety of food. So the discourse continues. Today, my master preferred this sauce, or reached for it, or took a lot of it, or praised it. Today, my master preferred the sour or bitter or pungent or sweet or hot or mild or salty sauce. Or he preferred the bland sauce, reached for the bland one, or took a lot of it, or praised it. So again, the idea here is that a good cook, when they're preparing a variety of foods and offering it to their master, they're watching to see the master's behavior. So the master may not necessarily say, I like this one and I don't like that one. But if the cook notices, oh, the master took a lot of the green dish, but he didn't take much of the red dish, then the cook starts to get a sense as to what the master's preferences are, starts to get a sense as to what works well for their employer. And this then allows them to be more competent and more effective at their job. So better able to prepare the kinds of foods that their employer actually wants. So this is done, again, through paying attention to the results of what one is putting out. Also important here is that the cook is giving a wide variety of different options. So it doesn't say, for example, the cook just comes in and just puts down sour food and expects the master to like it. But instead, the cook offers sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, hot, mild, salty, and bland. So in other words, a wide range of different options. And from those wide range of different options, the cook is observing, how does the employer respond? How does the person react to each of these different options? And this also requires close attention. So for example, watching someone's facial expressions, watching their impulses, starting to get a sense of the subconscious behaviors of the employer. And so the simile here, again, it's saying that the foolish, incompetent, unskillful cook is not paying attention in this way. And because they're not paying attention in this way, then they don't get their employer's favor. But on and the Buddha says in the same way, a foolish, incompetent, unskillful seeker, practitioner. So the term bhikkhu, it should be pointed out, by the way, that the term bhikkhu, the literal meaning is a seeker, one who is seeking for alms, but also one who is seeking for truth. So one who is a dedicated spiritual practitioner. So normally we understand this to refer specifically to the monastic communities of Buddhism. And of course, that's the primary usage of the term bhikkhu. But when we come across this term in the suttas, it's good to remember that it's inclusive of anyone who is trying to practice Buddhism with diligence and persistence and perseverance. So any dedicated spiritual seeker on the Buddhist path. So he says in this way, a foolish, incompetent, unskillful bhikkhu or practitioner meditates by paying attention to the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. So this is the standard description of the first satipatthana. So paying attention to one's body experience and trying to do so in a persistent and clearly aware way without getting caught in desire and aversion. But the Buddha goes on, he says, but while one is doing this, the mind does not enter samadhi. So one is not getting into deep states of focused stillness and concentration. So the mind is perhaps still scattered and distracted, and you're having a really hard time paying attention to your meditation. The mind is wandering all over the place. And it says one's corruptions are not given up. So one's kilesas are not discarded or abandoned. So again, maybe you're trying to do some kind of mindfulness of the body practice. But as you're trying to do that practice, your mind is wandering all over the place, and you keep having sensual desire and aversion and confusion and doubt and sleepiness and agitation. You're having all of the usual difficulties during meditation. And then the same with the other three satipatthanas. So whatever one is doing within the domain of meditation, if one is not getting the desired results, namely an increase in one's samadhi and a reduction in one's defilements, reduction in one's mental corruptions. Well, the foolish, incompetent, unskillful meditator doesn't recognize this. They don't recognize that they aren't getting anywhere with their meditation technique. So they might just continue trying to practice with something that isn't working. And the Buddha says that foolish, incompetent, unskillful practitioner does not experience bliss in this life, nor do they cultivate mindfulness and clear awareness. And why is that? It's because they're not paying attention. They're not paying attention to the results of whatever practice they're trying to do. But then the Buddha gives the positive side of this simile. So he says, suppose an astute, competent, and skillful cook was to serve a ruler or a minister with a variety of food: sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, hot, mild, salty, and bland. And that cook recognized what was going on. That cook was paying attention to their master's behavior, recognizing, oh, today my master preferred this sauce, or preferred the sour, the bitter, the pungent, etc. So noticing again, so what is the master actually doing? What is it that's working for the employer? And by recognizing which kinds of foods are working for the employer, then the cook is able to emphasize those particular dishes in the future. And in the same way, the Buddha says, an astute, competent, and skillful practitioner, when practicing the four satipatthanas, so mindfulness of body, feelings, mind, and mental objects, they're paying attention to what effect that's having on their mind. So as they're trying to do a particular meditation practice, they're watching to see, am I actually getting a deeper samadhi? Am I actually reducing my defilements, my mental corruptions? And if they recognize, then yes, actually they are. They are practicing in a way which is increasing their samadhi and reducing their defilements, their mental corruptions. Then they can recognize this is an effective way of practicing for me, so I can continue in this way. And in such a way, then this person does enter into blissful states and is able to cultivate appropriate mindfulness and comprehension. And this is because they're paying attention to what's going on in their own mind. So paying attention to the actual results of their meditation methods. So this is very much in line with, so that's the end of the sutta. And these instructions are very much in line with the kind of training which I received in the Ajahn Chah tradition, which was a training to experiment with a wide variety of different meditation techniques and to constantly observe the effects on the mind, constantly investigating how are different meditation techniques affecting the mind in different ways. So this is like the cook who presents a wide variety of different dishes to the employer. Sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, hot, mild, salty, bland. So wide variety of different options. Rather than trying to, for example, just pick up one meditation technique and do only that for 20 years. Instead, to use a wide variety of different options and pay attention to the results. And if something doesn't seem to be working, it doesn't seem to be increasing one's samadhi and reducing one's defilements, then switch to something else. until eventually we start to figure out what is it that works for our mind. And this process is ongoing. Sometimes a technique will work very well for a period of time, a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, weeks, months, years. And then at some point, it's just not working anymore. So then we need to apply the same investigation and start shifting around and finding a way of practicing, shifting around our practice, not our body. Our body should remain still. But shifting around our practice and exploring different ways of meditating that seem to get better results. Something that seems to cultivate a better benefit for our practice, a better improvement in our practice. So those are my thoughts on this discourse for the morning. So a very relevant discourse for meditation practice, emphasizing first off the importance of experimenting with a wide variety of meditation methods, and most importantly, of constantly observing the actual results of whatever method we're using, so that we can understand when we need to alter our techniques or when we need to lean more heavily into something which gets particularly good results, so that we can keep our practice alive. We can keep it flexible. We can keep it cultivating the mind in the direction of awakening. So I think I'll end at that point so we can respect the sutta with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And at this time, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take some questions. First off, hello to all the people checking in online. Hello to Manal, Kit, Geeta, Icy, Karuna, Vivian, Jayanta, Saul, Lilani, Yankee, Matthias, Luisa, Jay, Kim, Andre, Brian, Bhumika, Tori, Yuri, and Joseph. Wow, lots of people checking in online. Good to see all of you. I don't currently see any questions. Here's a question. So Matthias asks, can you give an example where one gets stuck and they should change something in their practice? Yeah, so this actually comes up relatively often. An example of this, which is true for actually a fair percentage of people, is when they try to practice mindfulness of breathing. And rather than having an increase in tranquility and focus, instead, the more they focus on their breathing, the more they experience anxiety, restlessness, and agitation. So this is true for actually a relatively high percentage of people. Despite the fact that mindfulness of breathing is one of the most commonly recommended meditation techniques, it actually doesn't work very well for a substantial percentage of the population. So if you're desperately trying to do mindfulness of breathing and you're just noticing the mind getting increasingly anxious and restless and agitated and disturbed, well, that's a good sign that you should do something different. Your samadhi is not improving. Your corruptions are not decreasing. In fact, it seems like the opposite is happening. So it's time to do something else. Or someone who, for example, is practicing asubha meditation, so focusing on the non-attractiveness of the body, and they're noticing that they're starting to feel disgust and hatred towards their body. Or their mind is starting to become very aversive, very irritable, very grumpy. Well, then that's a good sign that you should stop doing that meditation and do something else. Maybe do loving kindness meditation, for example, or mindfulness of the body in a more simple, peaceful way. So these are some simple examples of ways that we can get a bit off track. But ultimately, it's about observing your own mind and seeing what are the actual effects of whatever meditation technique you're using. As the Buddha said, is your samadhi increasing and your defilements decreasing? That's what we should always be looking for. And that's the last question. So if there's no other questions, we can go ahead and conclude the session at this time. Okay, we have a comment here from Karuna. Hello, Karuna. Karuna says, I've heard this taught as also assessing your mind before each practice to see what you need, like if it's dull or hyper or tranquil, and you'd enter your meditation that day for that mind state. Yes, that's another aspect of this, is at the beginning of a period of meditation to analyze your current condition of mind and to select a method which is going to be helpful for that particular state of mind. Or if you've been noticing an overall tendency in the mind lately, then you might adjust your meditation practice accordingly. So yes, that's one example of using this practice, is investigating the condition of mind just before or just at the beginning of a period of meditation, and then selecting an appropriate method. And Manal asks, is it optimal to meditate in the seated position, and would this be a goal to achieve in order to have increased samadhi? Well, I would recommend that you apply the instruction given in the sutta, which is when you use different postures. So most commonly, the postures that are recommended are sitting meditation, standing meditation, and walking meditation, usually those three. There is also reclining meditation, but it's usually a disaster. So it's not recommended most of the time. Usually sitting, standing, or walking are what's recommended. Well, try them out and see what gets the best results for you. Sometimes you might find that walking meditation is what helps to increase your samadhi and reduce your defilements. Other times you might find a nice long period of standing meditation really effective. I used to know a monk who did mostly standing meditation. He actually rarely did sitting meditation. He did almost entirely standing meditation, and said it was extremely effective for him. And sometimes you'll find that sitting meditation is just right. So it is usually said that sitting meditation is the ideal position for deep samadhi. But you need to be realistic about your own conditions. So if I tell you that sitting meditation is best, but your actual experience is you get better results with standing or walking, well, then do standing or walking. Maybe in the future you'll get better results from sitting, but if right now standing and walking are better for you, then do standing and walking. And there's a question here which is a bit off topic. Sister Sunny says, is Buddhism basically body-mind neuroscience from ancient times? No, it isn't. No, not at all. No, Buddhism is the path to complete enlightenment, complete awakening, freedom from body and mind. So no, it is not body-mind neuroscience from ancient times. Nope. Nope, I disagree entirely. Kruna says, is upakalesa different from kalesa? Not really. They're basically the same word. The prefix upa, literally it just means near or close or in the vicinity of. But the way the word upakalesa is used in the suttas is it's almost identical to the word kalesa. In fact, they're defined in identical ways in the discourses. So they appear to be effectively synonymous. If there is a difference in meaning, it's something extremely subtle, not of much relevance. They're effectively synonymous. That looks like the last question. So I think we can go ahead and conclude at this time with 3 more sadhus to conclude the session. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you all next time.